Hey, John.
Hey, Eric. Welcome to podcast night.
Not how you doing tonight. It's welcome to podcast night.
I don't know. I just came up with that right now. Is that going to work?
Well, maybe that should be the new one because we've been doing it internal for the office. 20 weeks?
Yep. I think this is kind of the official one that we've kind of got all the infrastructure set up to release externally. But I I guess I'm assuming we'll put out, the ones that we've been doing that are external safe.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome to podcast night. Anyways.
So you got a little bit of follow-up for me or what?
I do. So from last week, we talked about those gigabit routers
right.
that had been compromised.
The I wish I had gigabit routers.
Yes. So shortly after that came out, of course, they were magically now being leveraged as a botnet.
Of course they were.
And then just a few days after that, since it didn't seem the company that created the routers was, well, I guess I shouldn't say I don't know, because I haven't read anything about them. Maybe they're working on a fix or whatever. But the group that had published the vulnerability then took matters into their own hands and released a patch.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, not the actual company that built the routers, but the company that discovered the vulnerability, figured out how to put together a patch and, built a little website saying, all right, go here. Here's a way to fix it.
Oh, man. So what was the vulnerability disclosed? I don't remember anything in the original article about, responsible disclosure at work. I mean, was it just exposed or disclosed openly for the first time?
No, it was disclosed to the vendor. They found 2 different critical vulnerabilities, and they sent the information off to the company. So the company has informed all the customers who purchased the models with the vulnerability, and then is working with the customers to assess the methods to address the issues that may still be in the field, and then leave it up to the customers how to do this. So
sounds like one of those situations where you've got an OEM and you've got a service provider and you got a bunch of people pointing fingers at each other about whose responsibility it is to fix it or deploy the fix or wonderful situation. I gotta say, I didn't read that follow-up, so I wasn't sure if you were going to tell me that they got on it, they fixed it, or, of course, no.
Not
it's
yet.
been hijacked for...
I imagine they're working on it. But yeah, it got hijacked for a botnet almost immediately. And then the company that found the issue also released a patch with a disclaimer, hey, saying this patch was not created by the official company and is not guaranteed. We just created it to try to help people out.
Oh, that is so funny. I mean, because you got to know I don't know what the patch is, but I assume it's some sort of, web server configuration, to whatever is displaying the admin console.
So that was the follow-up.
Nice for us to have follow-up on our quote unquote first external episode.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It'll be fun. We'll figure it out. We'll start putting up, once we figure out how to put out the back issues or back episodes.
Yes.
Old episodes.
All right. So you got a rapid fire set of things for me tonight, huh? No one topic.
I couldn't find just one thing this week or a theme. So I just had 4 kind of really quick articles that caught my eye. I don't think they're like a big discussion, each of them, or maybe they are, and this will be the whole podcast. But the first one was Yubico and Microsoft introducing passwordless login. So Yubico has the YubiKeys, the FIDO universal second factor. So I use YubiKeys, for example, to log into GitHub and a number of other services. So it's my second factor. So instead of my phone or getting a PIN on my phone, I just insert a little key into the side of the computer and it acts just kind of like an extra key. Well, this article announced at RSA, so I guess 2 weeks ago, is about how Microsoft and Yubico will now support a new security key that pretty much just acts like the key to your front door. If you have the key, you plug it into your computer and that logs you in automatically. And so it can, provide you a secure login just by having the key.
Interesting.
Which I think is a great idea. And then it also does the second factor, and you can, log into whatever services you need with a second factor key. Anyway, so I'm personally excited about FIDO keys, and I'm excited to see more and more support in different areas and different ways for them. So
you're just a hater. You're a hater. You hate passwords.
I do. And that leads me to rapid fire number 2. Poor Twitter. Last week,
right.
Got a whole bunch of people very excited on Twitter, no less, which, as far as I can tell, got really kind of blown out of proportion, right?
Yeah.
They have software, and apparently they were writing passwords before they got encrypted before they got hashed to a log file. Probably like a debug log file, and for other things, it just happened to be writing it to the log file.
They're just writing some transaction log or history that was including the headers or the parameter, all the parameters for the request, or, I've been involved, frankly, for a couple of different companies, not just the one that we work for at the moment, but in situations, years ago where, you're doing some sort of editing and you have to be really careful on every log file that you write. It's part of secure coding 101 about what you write to log files.
You may not think you're dumping the password, but you may inadvertently be doing that.
Right. I mean, most people you would hope would think twice before saying, print, password equals password into the log file. I would have to think so, even outside the security industry. But you're right. It's where you're dumping the entire, wire contents or, message contents that, if you don't actually take proactive steps to go and filter out, sensitive information, it's really easy for that to be captured. And then, largely good on Twitter for coming out and doing what they did.
There was no breach. There was no exploit. I think it was maybe a little bit overplayed in the media as, Twitter makes everybody, everybody has to change their password. And then when you read between the lines, it's like, and there's probably every engineer on the call is going, was that what it was?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're quietly thinking, I know I've done that myself at some point or another and had to fix that.
Yeah.
So anyways, but yeah, like you say, good on Twitter for at least coming out, acknowledging it, and suggesting people make changes.
Yeah, get way ahead of that thing.
All right, so next rapid fire topic now, we're going from passwords to the social media aspect, and it leads me sideways over to Facebook, and they just can't seem to catch a break in the news lately. The title of the article was Facebook Security Analyst is Fired for Using Private Data to Stalk Women. The key I get there really is people are bad, and if they have access to data and they're a bad person, they might do bad things with it. It's for me, again, it's just the reminder, whatever you're doing online, people can see it. There's nothing you're doing private. Maybe the public doesn't see it, but there are plenty of legitimate reasons why you need a security guy to be digging in and looking at, probably some of the more private details that you think you're keeping private, researching whether it's a bot or if there's any abuse or harassment or other things going on. So they have plenty of policies in place to try to limit that and make sure people are only doing it when and it's logged and all that. So, which is how they found the guy, and then of course immediately fired him. And I appreciate that. Facebook statement is, hey, any employee who abuses these controls is immediately fired. Period. You stepped over
Done.
the line.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I mean, nothing online is private. It's hard to convince kids of that, or really have. I mean, I guess kids don't necessarily think long term anyway, because it's not only that it's not private, but it can last, and not can last. It will last for forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a nice segue to my rapid fire number 4.
Okay. I'm setting you up. All right.
Well
let me
done.
tee you up.
All right. So you know what the Signal app is?
Private
right?
messaging.
A private messaging app. So there's an article, a researcher found that, if you're using the Signal app on a Mac, so it's kind of like Apple has iMessages, right? You can use it on your phone and it syncs with your Mac, and you can send them from your Mac or your phone or wherever. Well, if you use the Signal app on your desktop, there is a security issue, because one of the features of Signal app is to have messages that self-destruct. Kind of the Snapchat concept, right? It's there for some period of time and then it goes away. Well, the problem was, if you are allowing the macOS notification bar to, display these messages for you.
No way. They didn't.
The Mac notification bar actually is part of the Apple OS, so you write to that API, and Apple then, or the API, is storing those messages on disk. And so if you're, doing forensic analysis, you thought all your Signal messages disappeared or self-destructed or went away, but they're actually stored in a SQL database, accessible by anybody on the Mac hard drive. That's part of the feature of the API.
Not good. I know that I know that Signal is used a lot for things like whistleblowers and
journalists, yep.
Journalism. I fear for this type of exposure of how many people who are assured that it was private and they're doing the best that they can.
Well, I saw some commentary online about, hey, there is an Apple API to remove that out of the database. So, maybe there's a fix, maybe Signal the Signal app on the desktop can do something, but it's, like you say, another reminder of how interconnected everything is. You think you're doing everything right in one area, but there's so many fingers once you get down to the operating system or the APIs or whatever you're using that who knows where it is.
And how is that not in my Time Machine backup?
Well, exactly. Loop back to that reminder. Hey, everything, just like I tell my kids, whatever you do online, just assume Dad can read it and kind of stick with that and you'll be fine.
That's right. Don't do anything you wouldn't want your mother to see.
Not that we do, not that, we respect their privacy, but hey, it's not me, it's technology.
It's a good object lesson. Well, so tell you what, I've kind of got a rapid fire, topic change here, but I've kind of got a rapid-ish fire set of things myself, which is
all right.
The Microsoft Build conference was going on earlier this week, and there were a number of things I read that coming out of that, but my article for the week is really this Verge article that has sort of the top 6 things announced at Build this week. I do a lot of Mac stuff, but we have a lot of Microsoft software, obviously, and to be honest, I've been like you're the one that really was more perceptive of this earlier than I was, but Microsoft's been hitting on a lot of cylinders since Satya took over, in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing some really good work these days, and more than just the work, which I feel like I've always had a lot of respect for, sort of the quality of just core engineering, at least, but the attitude and the premise and the sort of motivations are more open, more interesting, more things that I personally, frankly, care more about.
Yeah, I would love to see maybe a write-up of, at some point, or a book at some point in the future, as to how they were able to change the culture. Because it was definitely a culture change. And it sure seemed to happen a lot quicker than I would expect a company of that size to kind of change their culture. I love it.
There's gotta be some great inside stories for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. You're right. That would be a not exactly Microsurfs too, but something similar. Okay, so these are some of the things that were announced, and so the first is I'll just kind of go through some of these and my thoughts, at least. So the first is that your phone syncs with Windows. So this is a app, I guess, that will sync both Android and iPhones with Windows 10. So think text messages, photos, notifications, that kind of stuff. And this, for me, this seems like the continuity feature that, the iPhones have with, I guess we call it Mac OS these days, where I love the, the fact that I can get messages on my Mac, and, they show up on everywhere. And I oftentimes I'm in a texting conversation, and I'm sure people are like, how in the world is he typing that fast with his thumbs? Well,
that's right.
Kind of not.
It's not thumbs.
I kind of have my whole, superpower keyboard right in front of me. But I have to say, for this, my big, dubious, squinty eye goes for, I suspect they can do a ton of stuff on Android and make the Android experience pretty good. In fact, better. I mean, it'll be interesting because I think they could do it. Microsoft, given how open Android is, can make the Android and Windows experience better than Google probably can, with, anything other than, maybe a Chromebook. But, Google's not in nearly as strong a position on the desktop side. So that's interesting, I think. Whereas I have a hard time seeing that they'll be able to match that functionality with iOS. I'm not an iOS developer, although I kind of peer over the garden fence at the iOS APIs and kind of pay a little bit of attention to it. I don't believe there's any API that lets you, be notified when a text message comes in, for example, and send texts without interaction on the phone. Apple doesn't do those things for privacy reasons, right?
I don't know. I know there's a message UI framework that they allowed it to send a message, but it's kind of like anything on Apple. There, you have to have explicit consent to be able to send an SMS, but I don't know of any way to receive an SMS.
Right.
So depending on, if it's just, hey, you can send an SMS from your phone out of the Microsoft app. Okay. But yeah, I don't know about receiving.
And they did add that whole iMessage SDK. Was that last year? Or was it 2 years ago at WWDC? Yeah. So maybe there's some more stuff in there. I suspect that this is going to be heavily weighted towards what, capabilities on Android versus iOS. So, but that's interesting though, and I think it's an interesting angle to take on the mobile market. Windows.
Yep.
Windows tried Windows Phone, tried Windows RT, tried Windows Phone. This is a far more interesting take for me. So that's something that I think will be interesting to watch.
As you know, I use both. I mean, I have iPhones, personal iPhones, and then my work phone is an Android phone, which I really like. And I've been using the Microsoft apps, because we use Office 365 at work. I love the experience of the Microsoft apps on both iOS and it's similar to the Google apps, right? Google has all their apps are also on iOS, and they have that same, experience. People can gripe about the material design on iOS. It doesn't bother me that much, but Microsoft generally has, it looks and feels like an iOS app, and it looks and feels like an Android app, where Google, it kind of feels like a Google app. So I like I said, I really like what Microsoft is doing lately.
Yeah, they're really going at it kind of horizontally and saying, hey, we'll work everywhere.
Yep.
And it's such a smarter strategy, especially coming from their dominance in the enterprise, productivity space. Okay, so second thing from Build is Alexa and Cortana.
Did you just kick off your echo?
I halfway through the word, I was like, let's say Amazon cylinder person and Cortana working together. So this is another interesting thing, kind of a probably not a co-opetition so much as, it feels like Amazon's in the total driver's seat here. So, I have to say, I don't understand what Amazon's going to get out of this. I can understand Microsoft doing, kind of the same sort of thing. We want to work everywhere. And so maybe it's kind of more about getting, their bot access on a more equal footing than she sort of deserves, just on her own merits. But this I'm a little even more skeptical about than I am iOS on the first one. But to be fair to Cortana, I have never used it even once. So, I as you know, I have a lot of the Amazon items, and I've got a lot of the phones. So I have
Siri.
the Apple. I was trying not to say the word. I had the Apple. What is John Gruber say? Dingus? Yo dingus. I have the Apple Yo dingus everywhere, and I must say that it has, while it has still never even come a tenth as good as Amazon. I did actually say, "Hey dingus," the other day to my phone, and I set a timer while I was out grilling, and I had to be hands free, and I was like, I need a timer. All right. And it was the sort of thing I'm like, this is going to work. And it actually kind of did. So, okay. Good for Apple. But anyway, I view this as I'm really skeptical that this has much of a future. I can imagine them just kind of abdicating to Amazon. But
what's the use case? I don't know why would I want to say, hey, Cortana, open Alexa?
My suspicion is, and I don't know this, and they have a video here. I think that, Cortana, they're treating as a bot in a lot of Office 365 contexts. So like in Microsoft Teams, you can have Cortana join a team and then make suggestions and things like that. So I suspect that there will be it maybe like Uber Microsoft app or skill in the Amazon terminology, where Cortana can do a whole bunch of stuff with your office life. Microsoft would basically have to go and write Amazon skills to tie into all that functionality. Whereas, I think I'm putting a lot of anthropomorphizing their intentions here, but maybe putting more hope that they can turn that into a viable voice assistant, with all the Office 365 capabilities.
Yeah, so here's what's going to happen next. Hey, Alexa, open Cortana, say, hey, Google, and ask Siri to set a timer.
I know. Totally. Totally.
What is wrong with this
well
picture?
Done, dude. You just whipped that out of there. And you just triggered every single person's
That's...
Did you trigger your own? You did, didn't you?
I did. I triggered the Google. I muted my Alexa so it wouldn't pick up that one, but I forgot to mute the little Google puck there.
Bad Eric. Bad Eric.
Shh.
All right. So so they supposedly have that out in a limited beta, although it's not clear what you'll be able to do. And it totally is where you have to say, hey, Amazon, open Cortana.
Right.
I don't know. Seems very awkward. Okay. The third one is, I think, actually like unabashedly interesting, which is, they call it Timeline for iOS and Android. So this is a way for, it looks like effectively storing state on apps. So this is kind of like, Apple's sync service, maybe in some ways, except that the first thing that they're doing is storing state across Windows 10 devices and iOS and Android. So if you're editing a doc in, on your phone, you can just turn around to the Windows 10 device and the exact same edits are there. And this is sort of there today when you're, we've done a lot of co-editing of spreadsheets and documents and stuff like that using Office 365. But, I think it'll be interesting as that kind of pretties up even farther. And this is also open, and it says Microsoft is encouraging developers to start syncing their apps activities with the timeline as well. So that I think is a interesting way of doing completely cross-platform syncing. That could be very, very cool. And I know Azure, by the way, I've watched some videos. I know Scott Hanselman did some a long time ago for the sync service. Azure did the mobile sync service years ago for even for iOS, made it really easy. And one of the benefits of using something like that is the fact that you can use the exact same thing on both an iOS app and an Android app. But this looks like it's kind of a next level of abstraction on top of that.
Yeah, I'll actually admit to on my Pixel, I run the Microsoft launcher, or I did for a while. I actually made the mistake of upgrading to Android P, which we can talk about next week. But
yeah,
I'm no longer running the Microsoft launcher on my Android phone.
Are you still running Android P?
I'm still running Android P.
Okay, well, brave man. Yeah, when you told me yesterday or the day before that they put out beta 2, I'm doing it on your
on my work phone.
On your work phone. I kind of gave you a look. I think like, okay, you brave man. Well, Google I/O is still going on, so we'll save that for next week. Maybe since we're kind of far in here, we'll do maybe this for Google I/O next week. But so the fourth thing, Microsoft offers devs more money than Apple or Google. Hey, Eric, what makes the world go round?
Money. Oh, love. Sorry, love.
Microsoft, in some circumstances, it says, so, read the fine print. I presume it's more than like a small percentage of them will only take a 5% cut from developers putting apps in the Microsoft App Store, as compared to the traditional, standard set by Apple in 2007 or 2008, whenever the App Store came out, as opposed to 30%. So, I don't know if I'm that great at math, but that's 1/6 the amount. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
95% going to the developer is awesome. It does say games not included, so they got to get their free to play crystals, coins, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But
I wonder if that'll attract. So I have, and maybe this is just because I'm much more familiar with the Apple App Store, but because there's a lot of junk on the Apple App Store too. But in the times that I've tried poking around the Microsoft Store, there did not seem to be a lot of high quality stuff. So maybe with a higher percentage, maybe it'll encourage more higher quality apps, or maybe the flip side will happen. But
I definitely,
it can only be good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the carrot, I would say, to this, we don't have to take this all the way out there, but Microsoft announced S Mode a couple months ago, and in S Mode you can only get apps out of the App Store. So, S Mode's a stick, 95% cuts, maybe a carrot. Maybe between the two of them, they can get more apps, both in the App Store and also monetizing through the App Store too. Because I believe that there's, at least I've been told there's a number of items that, you get on, and what is the app? The app is basically a link to other apps that.
And how much longer really before the only way to get apps is through an app store, even on the PCs? I mean,
it's coming.
Apple started it. Google is pushing it as well with the Android stuff. Apple's trying it on the Mac App Store. Microsoft is trying it here. They'll keep trying until they make it work.
Yeah, I mean, so. I really, this is one of the things that I am really disappointed by, how little progress has been made in the Mac App Store for the last 5 years. It is one of those things that I was very excited when the Mac App Store came out. And I've bought a lot of things through the Mac App Store. And I prefer, if I can, to buy them there because it is so easy to reinstall them. But it's gotta be reasonable for the developers. And that's both in a cost and how much a cut they get, and also the models are. The model of how
there's no upgrade.
Exactly. There's no upgrade. Who are your best people when you're building a tribe of followers and customers? They are the people that are using your product. If they're not, then, presumably they've gone on to somebody else. But if you're using them and if you're updating it, you're providing value, that's what businesses are on top of. And the App Store does not assist with that. It if anything, it is negative in that. And I obviously, we're in the software business. I happen to love software, and I have no problem paying for software, because I know what goes into it. But I'm looking for. One of these app stores is going to break out, and given the rate of change on the Mac App Store, I fear it will not be that one.
I'm with you. I'm kind of sad. Some of the best Mac apps are not on the App Store, or tried the App Store
right,
and bailed
and
because
left.
it was it just didn't function. And I'm sure Apple knows this is a problem for them, but there just isn't enough. It's not high enough on the priority list to fix, it feels like.
Right.
And maybe Microsoft will figure it out.
I'm not sure. I mean, people have been complaining about the Mac App Store for years, and it feels like one of those situations where, by a lot of metrics, you could claim wild success, and yet, no. Anyway, all right, we're kind of going long here. How about we hit up our something funs?
All right. Well, mine's short and quick. A week ago, we picked up watching Lost in Space, a remake. It's a Netflix original remake, and it is really well done and very family friendly. I wouldn't say little kids because it can be a little scary, I think. But I have, my kids are all teenagers now, and 12 is the youngest. But I would say even 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, it's a lot of fun. So if you're looking for a little bit of a sci-fi fix and haven't want some kind of fun family, because it's fun for our family because it kind of maps to, there's a mom and a dad and 2 girls and a boy. So that's my family, right? So
nice. I didn't realize that.
We joke about, hey, that's, and the attitudes of the characters kind of map a little bit to my kids as well. So it's even funny. We've just started calling the characters by our family names instead of the actual names of the characters. And it's just fun to watch. So that's my something fun. Check out Lost in Space on Netflix. I think there's 10 episodes, and we're not to the end yet. We're only on episode 7, but it's fun.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's on my list. In fact, I mentioned it to Shirley at lunch today that, hey, I've really been kind of wanting to watch the Lost in Space show. She hadn't heard of it, but at some point in time here, maybe early summer after the kids are out of school and they have a little bit more time. But okay,
it's not edge of your seat stuff, but it's good fun.
No, I'm sure they'll enjoy it. We're still working, by the way. We're still working through Star Trek: The Next Generation slowly. So we're almost to the end of season 3. All right, so my something fun is also media related. So it is, and it's kind of funny how it came about, I guess. But it was, I sometimes use this technology called RSS. Anyway, so I follow this author, John Scalzi, and he's doing like a series of blogs posts this week about ask him anything. And anyway, I saw a link to the one that was about asking about Robert Heinlein today. And anyway, this is a long way of going about. So he described one of his book series, Old Man's War. I don't know if you've read it. He described it as Starship Troopers with old people. And
I have visions of that 80s movie Cocoon in my head now.
You're not that far off. So if you haven't read this, which it doesn't sound like you have, I will have to see if I can Kindle lend it to you, but it is a wonderful series. There's actually 4 or 5 books in the whole series. But the first one is Old Man's War, and that's what kind of floated across my desk again. And I was like, oh, I love that book. I should reread it. If I didn't have so many other things that I need to read for the first time, instead of going back and reading something I think I might have read that series twice though. So I think it's one of those that's worth it. So that's my something.
I'll have to check it out.
War by John Scalzi. It's not a new series. I mean, I think it was mid 2000s. So.
Now I'm getting visions of what was that? Space Cowboys. You remember that one? I think it was in the 90s. Clint Eastwood, a bunch of guys. They went to space. It was like Cocoon, but old guys going to space.
Armageddon.
You don't remember Space Cowboys?
No, I don't remember Space Cowboys. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
All right. other movies that old people take over. Red, Bruce Willis, you know.
That I did see.
There's action movies.
What right. Red, Retired Extremely Dangerous.
Yes.
Okay, I get that reference. Yes, that was a funny one. All right, yeah, you'll have to read
I will.
Old Man's War. All right, Eric. I'll talk to you later. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Bye.
See you, John.